and welcome back to another newborn week from Boys Town Pediatrics. My name is Gabby. I am your host, and we are going live every single day this week with a Boys Town pediatrician and a special physician on Friday from Boys Town Pediatric Gastroenterology. And we are going to be discussing an array of topics to help prepare you for baby. So we are going through these lives every week, and of course we're doing a giveaway. So if you want to participate in that, make sure you like this video and leave a comment in the comment section. You can comment anything. You can say hi, let us know your due date, what you're excited for, any questions as we go through our discussion. And of course, if you're watching live and you maybe haven't disclosed your pregnancy or don't want to leave a public comment, totally fine. We're checking the inbox throughout the stream as well. And then the only other housekeeping thing I want to mention is while we do these virtual lives every day this week, we also have an in-person event this Saturday at Boys Town headquarters in Omaha. And I know many of you are signed up, but if you haven't signed up already, I went ahead and linked it above this video, and then it's also pinned in the comment section. So if you need more details on when and where, or you'd like to sign up, you have that link available. Dr. Wilcoxon, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Gabby?
Good. It's great to have you on. Thanks for starting the week off strong with us. And
no problem.
How long have you been with Boys Town Pediatrics?
I am in my third year with Boys Town. I trained here at Omaha for medical school, and then I went away for residency. I was in Salt Lake City for 3 years there for residency. I practiced for 3 years in Salt Lake while my husband was finishing his residency. We did 1 year in Milwaukee. I did pediatric urgent care for that year while he was doing his fellowship. And then we came back home to Omaha, and I've been here for almost 3 years now.
Awesome. And you are a mother yourself, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I have 2 little ones. My daughter is 5, and then my son will turn 3 next month.
Wonderful. That's great to hear.
Yep.
Cool. All right. So we'll start off strong here with our discussion questions. Dr. Wilcoxon, what are the first steps that parents should take when baby-proofing their home?
Mm-hmm. So when we think about baby proofing, a lot of people, before baby comes, it's kind of hard to figure out exactly what you need to do because you don't necessarily need like a baby gate or cabinet locks or things that we typically think about from a baby proofing standpoint until your baby has mobility. But it is important before baby comes to just kind of think about safety for the whole family. So do you have a fire escape plan, a fire extinguisher? Do you have working smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms in your home? This is a good time to test your basement for radon and get that mitigated if you need to. Other things that we think about in terms of family safety and pediatric safety is something like lead. So if you're in a home that's built before 1978 and there's any lead-based paint, you would definitely want to get that remediated before baby comes. So it's a good time to look into that as well, or get anything tested in your home that you need to. Mold remediation would be another thing that I would think of. So if there's any concerns about the safety of your home in terms of like what's inside, or, making sure that you have plans for tornado, severe weather, fire, those types of things, this is a good time to kind of refresh some of those things. Another thing that's come up more recently is that these Wi-Fi baby monitors are really popular, and Wi-Fi, of course, can be hacked. And so, it may be a time for you guys to kind of look into your technological safety and figure out, is my Wi-Fi connection safe, or what can I do to kind of have a little bit more security with that? And then lastly, this is just my personal advice from my experience with the kids. When I think about, during that newborn phase, you're moving around a lot from room to room. You're in, maybe nursing in one room or putting the baby down to sleep. And so there's a couple different rooms that we spent the majority of our time in. And I liked to call it the baby docking station. I needed to make sure I had a safe place that I could put my baby in each of those main rooms, where if I needed to set baby down so that I could be hands-free, I had a safe space already set there. You'll find during the newborn phase that you're doing a lot of things one-handed. And so, because you have baby in the other hand. And so having that safe space to go where you can be two-handed is really going to be helpful. And just making sure baby stays safe while you're not with them.
Yeah, definitely. Great tips right off the bat. We'll go a little more in detail with some of these. So a lot of people watching at home, I'm sure, have pets, dogs and cats, and maybe some other kinds, but how can parents prepare their pets for the arrival of a newborn?
Yeah, and when I was thinking about this question, I thought, gosh, this all depends on which pet you have.
Yes.
So I think most people we're talking about dogs and cats, and especially dogs. I think it's really important if there's any basic commands that your dog isn't very good at, kind of teeing up some of that training before can be helpful. And it kind of depends too on the temperament of your animals. I'm a dog owner. I have one dog who I trust completely implicitly around my kids, around other people's kids. And I have one dog that is a bit more reactive and needy. And so we always have to think about where's a safe place to put him if we need him to be away from our kids or other people's kids. And he's good around my kids, but we have to be a little extra cautious with him. And so having a safe space to put baby, having a safe space to put dog. So having kind of dog-free areas, kid-free areas. Definitely when we think about when we get into the more mobility, crawling, walking kind of toddler phase, making sure that dog's food or even cat food, depending on if your cat or dog is kind of more aggressive around their food, that's in a place where the baby doesn't go or end up into a situation where it could be more dangerous. And then when we think about reptiles, because I thought maybe some people have some reptiles, making sure that we do really good hand washing. So specifically, one of the things that we worry about is that turtles can be carriers for salmonella. And so before and after touching a turtle or really any reptile, it's good to just make sure that we do hand washing. And so that can be passed on to baby if we are interacting with our pet and then don't wash our hands and touch baby. And so making sure that we do good hand washing. We did too have a blanket that we wrapped my daughter in the hospital. And then when my husband went home the next day to like take care of the dogs and stuff, he brought the blanket home so the dogs could smell it. And so that does seem to be kind of a helpful thing to introduce your animals, that there's going to be a new baby coming home and get them used to the scent.
Definitely. Yeah, that's great. What about older siblings, helping siblings adjust to new baby?
Yeah, and I think the best thing with new siblings is just to make sure that they're involved in the entire process. I like using the term our baby or your baby instead of my baby so that the older sibling feels like it's mine too. It's helpful to read books about being a big brother or big sister, involve the older siblings in purchasing things for the baby, like, oh, do you think the baby's going to like the blue blanket or the green blanket? So that they feel like they're kind of contributing to some of the decisions that the family's making. You can have the older sibling help with brainstorming names for the new baby. And even if they come up with something completely silly and ridiculous, take it seriously. Oh, let's add that to the list, or something like that to make it feel like they're being heard. Making sure that you set up childcare for labor and delivery. This was really challenging for us because both of our kids we had in other states, and we had to figure out who's going to watch first. And when we were in Salt Lake, who's going to take care of our dogs while we're at the hospital, and then when we were in Milwaukee for my husband's fellowship, and we had my son who's going to take care of my daughter when we're at the hospital. And so kind of making a plan for childcare and who's my emergency contact if I go into labor at 2:00 in the morning, making sure that they have their phone on can be really helpful. The other thing that a lot of parents think about with older siblings and prepping for a baby, depending on the age of your sibling. So if you have a kid who's potty training age or transitioning out of the crib and into a toddler bed, plan for when you want to do those things. You're not required to do those things before baby comes. Sometimes it can be helpful if a sibling is really ready to potty train, do that a couple months before baby comes. But if your kid is not at all ready, put that on the back burner. That can be done another time. It's challenging, but it can be done another time. And then if we are going to transition out of the crib and into a big kid bed, and the crib is going to go to the baby, we definitely recommend doing that a couple months before baby comes. Even if you're planning on having baby in the bassinet for the first 6 to 12 months, having the toddler bed really established as your older kid's sleep space can be really helpful when the crib does go to the baby, so that the toddler does not feel like that baby just took my crib. So if you have much older siblings, something that you could consider doing, like if you've got, teenagers, taking a babysitting class from the Red Cross or a CPR class from the Red Cross, that can be a good way to get them involved, kind of prep them for how can we contribute to the safety of the baby when the baby comes.
Yeah, all great tips. Perfect. And just want to remind everyone, I see a lot of great comments coming through. Thanks for watching. And if you have discussion questions, I know we're kind of ping-ponging around with a lot of different things for how to prepare your home for baby. So just know that we left time at the end for discussion questions if you have any. Are there any specific baby-proofing tools or products that you would recommend?
Yeah, when I was thinking about this question, the number one thing that I thought of was really from a car seat perspective. And I think there's a lot of kind of confusion about which car seat do I need and when. And so I did want to cover that a little bit. A lot of people don't realize that the convertible car seats, the one that you can put into your car and that stay in your car, can actually be used to take your baby home from the hospital. And so a lot of people think that they need to have the infant car seat, the one that you can click in and out from the car seat base early on, but it is possible to just invest in the convertible car seat, something that converts from rear facing to forward facing and maybe also to a booster seat as your child ages. Most of the convertible ones are rated down to 4 pounds. And so rear facing, 4 pounds and above, safe to take the baby home from the hospital in that. The infant car seat is very useful in terms of convenience because you can click it out. You can buy multiple bases and put them in, put your baby in different cars and you just have to click them into the car and you just have to buy the bases. It's easy to take them into the pediatrician's office and just carry them versus taking out of the convertible car seat. But I think that's just something to kind of keep in mind when you're looking at your budget for your baby, that the infant car seat is kind of an optional thing. There is that convenience factor, but car seats are expensive. And especially if you get to the point where you're having, maybe 2 car seats in 2 different vehicles, they can be kind of expensive as well. So the infant car seat is really helpful from a convenience standpoint, but you can also skip it. That's still a safe place for your baby to ride in the convertible. Other things, when we moved back to Omaha, I upgraded my cabinet locks to the magnetic ones and I will never go back. Those are actually really helpful. I thought they would be annoying to try to find the magnets everywhere, but it has ended up being really nice. And then obviously baby gates at the top of all of the staircases. If your baby's unsafe crawling up the stairs, you can put them at the bottom as well, but definitely at the top of any staircase, you want to make sure that you have a baby gate. As far as like certain products or brands, they all have to meet the minimum safety requirements in order to be on the market. And so really it's kind of up to you in terms of which product or brand you like, what works best for your house, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And we talked a little bit about car seats, but I want to let everyone know that Boys Town Pediatrics actually does free car seat checks very regularly. So I'll make sure to link it in the comments when our next one is, because I know we've got them coming up this spring. And
talking about it at the end, actually.
Oh,
a little bit.
Okay, great. Because I know the big concern is, okay, I've got the car seat, but I don't really know how to install it. So stay tuned. We'll talk about that at the end. I don't want to lead you into it. Perfect.
Just a little bit. I brought up the car seat checks.
Awesome. The next question is, what are some common household hazards that parents might overlook?
Yeah, the thing that I always think of is if you have older blinds and shades, that cord or that pull on your blind or shade, that is one of the biggest safety risks that I see in a home. Mm-hmm. They are now actually outlawed. If you buy new blinds or shades, you will not be able to find the pole because they are so dangerous to kids. And so if you have older ones and you're not planning on upgrading them, because that can be a huge out-of-pocket expense, make sure that you have a way to make that pole safe. So you can put the thing that you can kind of wrap it around the corner. And then you just have to be very, very cognizant of making sure that it's in a safe place. As toddlers get to be older, that's a huge hazard in terms of like wrapping around your neck, wrapping around an extremity, various different things. Kids can just get into very unsafe situations with those. So I think that one is commonly overlooked. I also see people forgetting to lower the crib mattress. So once your baby is big enough that they can push up on all fours, being in the bassinet or on the higher setting for the crib mattress is no longer a safe space for them to be. And we want to lower that to the lowest setting on the crib. And so I think that's something that people forget. You get into your groove with your newborn and you sort of forget that the crib or the bassinet is actually changeable. So lowering the crib mattress, I do feel like people forget. As babies get older, and especially when they hit rolling phase, you've gotten used to being able to put your baby in one spot and have them stay there. And so once we get into an age where we roll, which is somewhere around 4 to 6 months, I do see a lot of babies that roll off of the bed.
Okay.
And this could be like where I've just, nursed my baby or given my baby a bottle, and I set them down and I shift and the crib or the mattress moves and baby topples off. And especially if you have like a hard surface floor, that can be a pretty dangerous fall. So making sure that once we've kind of gotten to rolling phase or nearby, that we no longer place baby on anything that's high up. So changing tables and beds are our most common. You're going to be spending a lot of time on the floor. And so once baby gets to be rolling age, having the safe space, having the changing space be on the floor is a much safer place to be. And then we talked about this just a little bit, is adjusting car seats with growth. So, we want that car seat to really be where it's at or just below the level of the shoulder. And then we can also adjust the strap that goes in between baby's legs to kind of give them a little bit more room as they grow. And so making sure that we're kind of safely in our car seat, that the car seat's adjusted for growth. The infant car seats, they're a little bit more complicated because you have to do some rethreading. So practicing that before baby comes can be helpful, just so that when you get your baby into the car seat, you're on your way to, daycare, childcare, the store, and you don't have a ton of time and you realize, oh gosh, my baby doesn't fit this anymore. You have at least done it once before and done that rethreading. And then the last thing is any water source can be dangerous to babies or toddlers especially. So babies can drown in a pretty small amount of water. And so things that people overlook, everyone knows about pool safety, but like if you have a pond in your backyard, if you have an area in your backyard where water just like there's standing water, that can be unsafe. Toilet water can be unsafe. Leaving water in the bathtub can be unsafe. And so thinking about kind of where you have water that collects in your home or on your property, that can be another thing that people overlook that we would recommend you think about.
Right, definitely. And another one too, this might be more when they are, crawling and pulling themselves up on things, but I've seen it a lot on social media lately about making sure that any furniture you have that leans against the wall is like tied, or what's the word?
Yeah, that you like basically bolt it to the wall.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So securing any furniture, any tip over.
Right.
I will be honest, I did not do that with my kids.
Yeah.
But we also did buy a slightly fancier dresser that like my son is 3 and he cannot open up his dresser drawers because it has that kind of safety protection in place.
Yeah.
And then once my daughter got older and she moved to a big kid bed, I just talked with her a lot about not pulling out all the drawers and not climbing the drawers ever. And so that it kind of depends on your personal situation. We did not end up doing that one.
Yeah, totally good. I just have seen it lately. So I was like, okay, that's good to ask about. I don't know if that's good.
And I'm sure on social media and various things, like people will post like their baby monitor, like black and white pictures of the toppling down on top of their kids. So it's definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we've got about 4 more questions on our list. So if you're watching live and you're interested in our giveaway, we're going to be giving away a baby blanket with a Red Cross home safety kit. Make sure you've liked this video and leave a comment, and then we'll get to those questions at the end after, if there's any in the Q&A that we'll get to also. Okay, so we talked a little bit about safe sleep, but what makes a safe sleeping area for a newborn?
Yeah. So one of the things that we talk about, and we have a handout on this that we give to all of our newborn visits, is the ABCs. So baby should be alone, on back, and in crib or bassinet. So kind of keeping your ABCs in mind. Babies don't love back sleeping. I tell my families it's one of the first times that you have to teach your kid to do something that they maybe don't enjoy doing. And this is something that we do as parents throughout the lifespan, but it's really hard to do with babies when we want to take care of them early on. So it is an important skill to learn. It's the safest way to sleep. And so kind of treat that as one of the first things that I have to teach my kid that may not be the most pleasant. Some babies do great, but a lot of babies don't like sleeping on their back. You want baby to have his or her own sleep space. So somewhere where it's just him or her in the sleep space. This can look like a lot of different things. It can be a bassinet. It can be one of those fancy motion bassinets. It can be a drawer. There are hospitals that send you home with, they call it the baby box. It can be a sturdy box. So this can look like a lot of different things. Pack and play. That's another really nice thing to have. That your baby can sleep in, and that's a safe place to sleep. But we just want to be in our own sleep space, not sharing a bed with a parent or a parent falling asleep with baby in a chair. That's an unsafe way to sleep. We want the mattress to be flat and firm, just a fitted sheet over there. Baby can be in a sleep sack or swaddled, and then nothing soft in the sleep area. So no pillows, no blankets, no stuffed animals. It should just be baby swaddled on the flat mattress. We also obviously recommend no smoking in the home. So there is a correlation between secondhand smoke and sudden infant death syndrome. So that's another way to kind of think about, we don't necessarily put this in the baby proofing box, but if you're a smoker and you're expecting a baby, this is a good time to talk with your physician about how can I work on quitting smoking, because that is going to be a safer place for baby to be in your home. In general, because I get asked temperature a lot of like what temperature should my home be, and anywhere between kind of that normal room temperature 68 to 72 is going to be ideal for babies do actually like sleeping in cooler temperatures, so even kind of on the lower end of that, babies tend to be pretty comfortable. Hot temperatures are more dangerous to baby than low temperatures. So when the AAP did all of their research into the factors that contribute to sudden infant death syndrome, too hot of a temperature, so people that were having high temperatures outside that lived in places without air conditioning or unable to kind of have that bringing that temperature down, were slightly higher risk. And so aiming on the colder side is okay to do. And then in general with sleep, babies need about one more layer than you do for sleeping. And I don't count the comforter as a layer. So I think about what I wear for pajamas. So if I wear like a shirt and shorts to sleep in, my baby probably needs like a onesie that's equivalent to that, and then a blanket over it. And so that's kind of what I think about. And that's usually kind of the standard to start with. In the winter, if your home is colder, you could do like a long sleeve onesie. In the summer, you could do a short sleeve onesie, but kind of the onesie and the sleep sack or a swaddle blanket is going to be kind of a nice place to start. And then you can adjust as needed. If baby seems like he or she is shivering or cold, you can always add another layer. If we are sweating or look flushed, go ahead and take a layer off. And then the last thing I think about too with safe sleep, and this is pretty well publicized, so I feel like a lot of people are up to date on this, but try to avoid having your baby sleep in something like a napper. So like a DockATot, the infant boppy pillows. A lot of people know that these have been recalled because there have been safety incidents inside of those when babies are fast asleep in there and a parent's not nearby watching. Yeah. It can be really hard to follow the safe sleep recommendations 100% of the time. So my rule of thumb that I share with my families is basically if you're in a place where you're asleep as well, you're busy or distracted or unable to pay attention to baby, if you're under the influence of alcohol or drugs, if we're easily distracted, if we have an older sibling who's busy doing something else and we're not paying attention to the baby, if any of those things exist, baby needs to be in a safe sleep space. If you are, say it's your first baby, everyone's home, we're all in the living room, baby's asleep right next to you, and you're attentive and there, baby can generally sleep wherever. Mm-hmm. And so if that's going to be on your chest or in a DockATot, you just have to make sure that attention is there if the baby's going to be in an unsafe position.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah, we've got some great questions coming in on sleep. So I'll just ask them here while we're on the topic. Yeah. Can you touch on swaddles and sleep sacks when talking about safe sleeping? And
so swaddles are complicated. Mm-hmm. If you are very good at swaddling, you are welcome to swaddle your baby. But the sleep sack is going to be much easier for most families because it's pretty foolproof. The things that you want to check with swaddles and sleep sacks, you want to make sure that we're hanging out kind of almost on the upper shoulder, not up close to the neck, because then it can creep up onto our face. And then After about a month, you want to make sure that that swaddle is not too tight around the hips or the like lower legs, because we want the hips to be able to kick while we're sleeping, and that helps to develop the hips in their hip sockets. And so those are kind of the things to look at. Generally speaking, I tell people, if this is your first baby and you're not a newborn nursery nurse or a pediatrician, just do the sleep sacks. I had to practice swaddling on dolls when I was on my newborn nursery rotation. I had to test out of it. So it is something that you need to learn. And if it's something that it's in your heart that you really want to learn, there are plenty of YouTube videos and you can practice. But if you can't get that really good tight swaddle, your baby is probably going to be more comfortable in a sleep sack, and you're going to be more comfortable falling asleep knowing that your baby is safe.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Another question on sleep here. For a bassinet mattress, is a waterproof mattress cover under the sheets okay?
That is totally fine. You can also put a fitted sheet over that. So a lot of the bassinets will already come with a mattress protector over that you can remove and wash, because baby will poop in it. But you can put a fitted sheet over that as well. You just want to make sure that it's pretty nice and tight and everything is tucked in, that there aren't any corners that are loose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great questions. Keep the questions coming in the comments while we're on here live. We'll go ahead and answer them as they relate to how to prepare your home for baby. So thank you for those. The other ones I had on my list, we already talked about pets and siblings. Is there anything else you wanted to add related to those that we didn't talk about?
Other thing I had put on here, I had talked about the babysitting class or the CPR. We had talked a little bit at the very beginning about how to prepare the whole home. Involving them in the baby proofing process specifically, this is a good time to do like a mock fire alarm in your home, or making sure that your older child knows where to go during a tornado. Depending on the age of your older child, this is a great time to think about teaching them name, address, phone number, how to call 911. And so kind of having some of those emergency protocols in place for your home. And then I did want to touch a little bit again on car seats. I know we keep going back to car seats, but car seats are really kind of one of the big safety things. And I wrote down too, just so that everyone knows, because I see a lot of confusion around this, the Nebraska laws versus the AAP recommendations, because they are a little bit different. So Nebraska laws, children must ride rear facing up until age 2 or until they reach the upper weight and height limit allowed by the car seat manufacturer. Most kids I see hit the height limit before the weight. Once you've hit the height limit, you do have to switch over. And so usually I see that kids can be rear facing until somewhere between 2 and 2.5. But just so you know, you can be ticketed if your under 2-year-old is not riding rear facing. And a lot of people switch over at 18 months or 20 months or something to forward facing, but you really got to keep them rear facing until at least age 2. And then children up to 8 must ride in a correctly installed car seat or booster seat. So if your child who's under 8, or your child who's under 8 is not in a car seat or a booster seat, that's a ticketable offense as well. And then they do recommend children up to age 8 must ride in the back seat, as long as there is a back seat equipped with a seatbelt and it's not already occupied by other children under 8 years of age. So the AAP, however, has different recommendations, and the AAP recommendations are a little bit more strict. We recommend that your child stays rear facing until they hit either the height or weight maximum, so which could be up to 3 for some smaller children. We recommend forward facing up until the maximum height or weight based off of your car seat manufacturer. So that sometimes we're getting into even like 5, 6, 7 years old. And then we recommend the booster seat up until your child hits 4'9". And so I tell people, plan on your child being in some kind of a safety seat until middle school.
Yeah.
As far as the AAP recommendations, but the ticketable offenses are a little bit more lenient.
Yeah, that's great. Good to know both, I guess.
Yeah, and a lot of this doesn't apply to you parents who are expecting newborns, but especially if you have older children, thinking about when am I going to transition my older child into a different car seat? What's my younger child going to be in? It's helpful to think about some of these things.
Yeah, wonderful. One more question here coming in about car seats. Could you discuss the concerns with letting baby stay in an infant car seat for too long? This user says, I've been reading a lot about that, but also have so many recommending the Doona stroller.
Okay. And I just had a family ask about this morning. So I'm wondering if that's something that's kind of going around a little bit more on social media. The
Yeah.
concern is just that we want baby to be in a safe position, and flat on the back is really the safest place. And it's more for the airway, that if baby's going to be in a car seat for a long period of time, we get a little crunchy, and sometimes that can impact the airway. If your baby is, a NICU graduate, they will do a car seat test, or if your baby's born prematurely, they'll do a car seat test where you sit in a car seat for up to 2 hours and they monitor oxygen and just make sure that your baby can still keep his or her oxygen level stable while being in the car seat. Some of this, it kind of goes back to some of the safe sleep stuff that I was talking about before, that say we're driving around for half an hour, you get home, your baby's asleep in the car seat, and you're in the situation of, do I take that baby out of the car seat and try to transfer them into the crib or the bassinet, or do I let my baby sleep in the car seat? And I kind of go back to my rule of thumb that baby can sleep in there as long as you're nearby and attending to them. If you have other children that you're tending to, if you have to take the dog out, if you have to do work, transition them to a safer spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect. Great question. Thank you for commenting those. I just want to remind everyone, if you're watching later tonight or maybe in the next couple of days and you're like, wait, I have a question, you can always leave in the comments and I'll send it to Dr. Wilcoxon and get you a response. So if you weren't able to watch live because of work or kids or any other thing, feel free to keep asking questions, but that's great. And I do want to know, so the last thing on car seats, so our next car seat check with Boys Town Pediatrics, it's going to be Thursday, April 17th. It's from 3 to 5:30 p.m. and that's going to be at Rental City, which is on the east side of Oakview Mall. So if you're expecting or you've recently welcomed a child and you want to get your car seat checked, come on over and I'll make sure to post that on our pediatrics page so you have all the info and you don't have to remember it from this either. So.
And that's good too for grandparents as well. So I already knew how to manage the car seats and I taught my husband how to manage the car seats, but my kids do ride with their grandparents a lot. And my parents were like, we have no idea what's going on here. This is very different from when we were raising children. And so they went and did a car seat check. So we have them through Boys Town. Children's Nebraska has them and it's posted on their website when they have free ones, or you can set up an appointment to go there and have them, a car seat technician, evaluate your car seat. And then Safe Nebraska is another good website that has car seat checks, babysitting classes, CPR classes, just kind of all various things that we can think about for child and adult safety. So when we talk about that, making your home safe, Safe Nebraska is a good resource as well.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
And they'll be here with us this weekend, right?
Yeah.
They were last time.
I was going to say, just lean on our community partners because, yeah, we've got you taken care of between us and all of our community members. And, of course, the nurse line. Could you talk about the nurse line real quick and what that offers?
So what I always tell people as a rule of thumb is just if you have a question and you're our patient, call us first. There's generally an appointment available for you. So we have obviously our general pediatrics clinics are open Monday through Friday from 8 until sometimes later on in the evenings, like I'm here tonight until 8 p.m. So most of the clinics do have extended hours, as well as Saturday clinics. And then we also have our same day pediatrics, which is our version of urgent care. We have an appointment based same day pediatrics and we have a walk-in based. And so call and figure out, can I get on an appointment? Where can I do a walk-in appointment? And those go until 10 p.m. most evenings, and then as well as Saturdays and Sundays. When we are not in clinic, Boys Town does not have an emergency room, but we do have our nurse triage line, and our nurse triage line is pediatric trained nurses who can answer your question, can walk you through the decision-making process of my infant has a fever. What do I need to do to treat this? Is it safe to treat this at home? Do I need to go to the emergency room? What's my dose of Tylenol or ibuprofen that I can give my kid? And they can also set up appointments with us. So if you call the nurse triage line at 2:00 in the morning and you're one of my patients, they are allowed to then make an appointment. They can say, give Tylenol, come and see Dr. Wilcoxon at 8 a.m. And I've been very happy with the advice given from the nurse triage line. Everything is very standardized and really good advice. And I've had a lot of patients who've come back and given me feedback that it was really helpful and reassuring for them to talk to somebody in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, great. I think we'll go ahead and jump into the giveaway. All right. So thank you all for commenting. We're so excited for all of you welcoming your babies. And the winner for today is Daniel J, and it's probably backwards when I should it. Daniel J, you're our winner. So thank you for watching. And this is a great reminder because you're watching, Daniel. All non-gestational or lactating partners are all invited to watch these as well. So make sure you send them to your partner and, have them watch after work or later, because there is definitely a great, or even your network, grandparents, as Dr. Wilcoxon mentioned, these are super helpful to share across the board. And we'd really appreciate you helping us get the word out. So congrats.
Partners tend to be really, really good at being like the car seat expert. So that's like a good kind of thing, especially if like the lactating partner is going to be taking over a lot of the feeding stuff. Things like the car seat, the bassinet, the safety stuff can be a really good job for the non-lactating partner.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for watching. We will be live tomorrow with Dr. Orr, and that topic is going to be newborn care essentials. So it's a lot of catch-all. We'll expand more on some of the things we talked today, and of course, teach you a lot of new things with a fun giveaway. So we'll see you tomorrow at noon. And thanks, everybody.